Hello, my name is Stephen Wierzbinski, and today I'm talking about my fellowship observations. I did two different 5-hour sessions. The first one was with my mentor teacher at Challenger Elementary School in Victor Elementary School District. Well, actually, that was the second one, but that's the first one I'm going to talk about by date. And it was an interesting day. This is a school that is part of a district. And it was interesting. Throughout the day, we went through some class observations. We were looking for classroom management of new teachers on campus, and it was kind of interesting to see what he was actually looking for. It was a little bit different than what I would look for, but I mean, we were almost on the same page. When I say a little bit different, it was more of what were the kids able to tell him. And I know that seems like, oh, well, you didn't think about that. Well, no, but I had thinking about it. You're walking in, you're looking at how are the teachers engaging the student. And I hadn't put such an emphasis on, well, what are the kids getting out of it? And this principal is really good about sitting down with the kids, asking them, what are you learning? And then I reflected back on kind of what I'm doing this year as a teacher in my classroom and what I've been instructed to by my new administrator. And it's really, if the kids don't even understand the essential question, we've got a bigger problem. I mean, I found it fascinating that that's, even though that's not necessarily how he stated it, just how it correlated, I thought that was great. Other things that I liked was when he was doing his check-in and check-outs throughout the day with his students. I thought those were key. He was very instrumental in those kids making sure they were okay. One of them was early in the morning. It was very interesting, and he brought him in and he got him breakfast, and I asked him why, and he goes, well, I've just taken the time with the student. I know he's acting out simply because he's hungry. Not that that's necessarily a shock, but it is interesting to see how that works in action. As an administrator or even as a teacher, you're going to find those things that go on with a student, and a lot of it, even something I'm seeing. I have a kid this year that acts out because he's hungry. And I just kind of correlated to that because it was interesting and he knew it and he was okay with it. And he's less likely to punish that student because of that, and taking that time, which when we're looking at PBIS, we're looking at how to discipline these students under the current laws. It's crucial to look at those and put in those strategies. What is the word I'm looking for here? Interventions. Thank you. Interventions to help these students. I thought that was crucial. So that observation overall throughout the 5 hours was incredible. We also had a couple runners from different classes, and when we think of runners, I mean, right to my head, I thought, oh man, that's kindergarten. No, we had a 4th grade runner on this one, and that was interesting. Without going into too much detail with that student, it's just his first year in school and lack of structure, and he's got a really brave teacher that's doing good things with him, but this student just particularly had a bad day, and it was interesting. So I think I took a lot out of that. The next 5-hour day I did was at my newest school, which is Newman Leadership Academy. Where there I am a 5-6 teacher. I'm also the technology coordinator for the entire school, and then the vice principal. So the first part of the day, I was the acting principal. I went in and observed a 1st grade class, and it's documented, although confidential, that's why no names will be used. There is a significant lack of classroom management in that class, and 3 boys I had to remove from that class. And I'll talk about one of them in a minute. 2 of them are your typical boys, misbehaving, acting inappropriately in class, and they were timed out to other classrooms for a period of time to correct behavior. Ultimately, one of those kids later on in the day got into a fight at recess. I had to conduct an entire investigation, make the recommendation for suspension for the student. And then when the principal was there on campus, she signed off through the process. But even documenting the due process was interesting. I had done it before, but it is important. We have to give every student due process, do an investigation. And in this one, even though the investigation seems silly, the kid admitted, yeah, man, I went up and I punched him right in the face, and I had no problem with that. Still had to give him due process and investigate to the fullest, because even if he admits it, the parents need to know as well. I mean, we have to be fair to those parents. And that was interesting. The other student is one that is kind of a special case, in my opinion. Not special like something's wrong with him. It's just he's an 8-year-old in first grade due to circumstances out of his control. He was never retained, I can say that. But he is a very intelligent young man, and he just gets caught up in stuff, and then he does react. I can't take that away from him, but we are putting in interventions for that student. And then when the principal got back and I observed her, we did a couple classroom visits, but nothing out of the ordinary to report on that. But what came out of it after that was the suspension that I already talked about, so we know where that ultimately went. But I had to take part in an expulsion hearing, not only as a co-administrator, but also as a teacher on campus. And the amount of work that goes into an expulsion was flabbergasting to me. It's not just, I'm going to put a kid up for expulsion, here's a couple papers, I fill it out, done. You are writing almost a small novel of, here's the timeline of everything that goes on with the student. Here's the timeline of all the notifications sent to the parent. Here's all the meetings with the parent. Here's the meetings with the board members. Here's the recommendation of fellow teachers on campus, and then you go to the board meeting for the approval. So nonetheless, it is a extreme process, and on that day, we were finishing up the process for this kid. Although necessarily, I don't agree with the expulsion as a whole, due to the fact that we had just held an SST on this student, just started getting interventions in place for the student. The problem I have with that is, that was right there. We didn't really give time for those interventions to work. However, being a part of the process, sitting in on everything, the acts that the student committed the last 2 times, well, actually all 3 times, were extremely egregious and expellable by definition all 3 times. So on a liability standpoint, we had to do it, even though I don't necessarily agree with it, because, I want to give, as a teacher, I want to give a student a chance all the time. Let's put in these interventions and see if it works. I also feel that at the end of the day, this was still a strong and good choice because of the nature of the acts, which are obviously confidential, so I don't go into that. But this is my video. Thank you very much.